Did you know that some of the greatest revolutions in human history were sparked, not by kings or generals, but by women whose names were buried in silence? Women whose courage lit fires of freedom, whose hands built nations, and whose brilliance reshaped the very world we live in. Yet, history forgot them. Their stories were erased, rewritten, or simply ignored. But today we're bringing them back. Because this is the untold stories of black women who changed history. Jamaica, 1720s. Deep in the misty blue mountains, a whisper echoed among the trees, freedom or death. Her name was Nanny, a woman born into the flames of slavery but destined to become a legend. With nothing but strategy, courage, and an unbreakable will, she led her people, the Maroons, in one of the fiercest guerrilla wars the British Empire had ever faced. The British sent armies, cannons, and muskets into the mountains. But Nanny knew the land better than anyone. She turned every hill into a fortress and every forest into a trap. They called her the Obia woman, believing she had supernatural powers. But her real magic? Her mind. Her leadership freed hundreds of enslaved people and forced the British to sign a peace treaty, recognizing the Maroons as free. She didn't just fight for freedom, she won it. And yet, how many of us were ever taught her name? 100 years later, another woman carried Nanny's fire across an ocean. Harriet Tubman. Born into slavery in Maryland, beaten, hunted, and nearly killed, yet she became the Moses of her people. But Harriet's story is more than just the Underground Railroad. She was a master strategist, a spy for the Union Army during the Civil War, and one of the first women to ever lead an armed military expedition in U.S. history. In one night, she led over 700 enslaved people to freedom, without losing a single soul. And when they asked how she never got caught, she said, "I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves." Her bravery shook an empire built on chains. Fast forward to the 1960s. While the world was watching rockets soar into space, one black woman was doing the math that made it all possible. Her name? Katherine Johnson, the human computer at NASA. At a time when segregation kept black people out of science and women out of leadership, she broke through both barriers. It was Katherine's calculations that helped launch America's first astronauts into orbit, and brought them safely home. Without her, the Apollo missions might have ended in tragedy. Her mind took humanity to the stars. Yet for decades, her name was lost behind the men who got the credit. Before we dive in deeper, kindly like this video, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel for more untold black history stories. New York, 1963. As America burned with civil rights protests, one artist picked up her brush, not to paint beauty but truth. Her name was Faith Ringgold. Her art told stories of black identity, womanhood, and power when few dared to. Every canvas was a revolution, bold, colorful, unapologetic. Her story quilts blended African storytelling traditions with modern art, preserving generations of black experience in fabric and thread. While others painted fame, she painted freedom. Now let's go even further back, 1600s Angola. The Portuguese came with guns, ships, and the Bible. But they met their match in Queen Nzinga, the warrior queen. When the Portuguese governor refused her a chair during peace talks, Nzinga placed her servant on the ground and sat on his back, looking him directly in the eyes. That one act sent a message: "You will not disrespect me or my people." For 30 years, she waged war against colonial rule, forming alliances, training armies, and leading from the front lines. In a time when women were expected to bow, she stood tall, a symbol of defiance and dignity. From mountains to battlefields, from secret classrooms to the stars, these women carried the same fire. They were mothers, warriors, scholars, and dreamers, all bound by one truth: they refused to be forgotten. And yet, even after their victories, their names were erased from textbooks, their legacies dimmed by the passing of time. But here's the thing: truth has a way of resurfacing. And the next chapter reveals women whose courage changed entire nations, but whose stories remain almost entirely hidden. Stay tuned, because we will uncover the stories of the women who fought in revolutions, built empires, and changed the course of black history forever. Before you go, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because the more we tell these stories, the less the world can ignore them. We met the queens, warriors, and visionaries whose courage rewrote history, yet their names were hidden in shadows. But their legacy didn't die, it multiplied. Across time, across continents, new women rose, unarmed, unafraid, unstoppable. Women who carried the fire of those before them and lit the path for those yet to come. This is their story. Before Rosa Parks sat on that Montgomery bus, there was a 15-year-old girl named Claudette Colvin. It was March 2, 1955. The bus was crowded. Claudette, tired from school, refused to give up her seat to a white woman. The driver yelled. The passengers stared. And she said the words that would echo through generations. "It's my constitutional right." Police dragged her off that bus. She was handcuffed, humiliated, and called names too cruel to repeat. But her act of defiance inspired others, including Rosa Parks just 9 months later. Claudette didn't make it into the history books. But make no mistake, she was the spark that lit the fire of the civil rights movement. Now imagine standing before the most powerful politicians in America and saying, "I am sick and tired of being sick and tired." That was Fannie Lou Hamer, a sharecropper from Mississippi who turned her pain into power. After being beaten nearly to death for trying to register to vote, she refused to stay silent. She stood before the Democratic National Convention in 1964 and told her story to the nation. Her trembling voice broadcast live across America. "Is this America?" she asked, "the land of the free and the home of the brave?" Her courage exposed the brutal truth of racism and changed the course of U.S. politics forever. She didn't just demand freedom, she defined it. When people talk about the civil rights movement, one name always rises: Martin Luther King Jr. But behind the speeches, behind the marches, stood a woman whose vision was just as powerful, Coretta Scott King. She wasn't just the wife of a dreamer, she was a dreamer herself. A trained musician, activist, and strategist, Coretta continued the movement even after her husband's assassination. She fought for gender equality, economic justice, and world peace, turning her grief into a lifelong mission. Because for her, the dream didn't die in Memphis, it only grew stronger. South Africa, 1970s. While Nelson Mandela was imprisoned on Robben Island, the apartheid regime thought silencing him would end the resistance. They were wrong. Because Winnie Mandela, his wife, his partner, his equal, became the face of the struggle. She endured years of exile, imprisonment, and constant surveillance. But she never broke. She organized communities, led protests, and carried the message of freedom when speaking it could mean death. Her defiance came at a cost, but her strength kept the movement alive until Mandela walked free. Winnie wasn't just a wife, she was a warrior. Fast forward to the 21st century. A little black girl from Chicago's South Side grew up in a one-bedroom apartment. She faced the same doubts, the same stereotypes, the same invisible ceilings. But she didn't let any of it stop her. Michelle Obama would go on to become the First Lady of the United States, the first black woman ever to do so. Yet even in the world's most powerful house, she remained grounded. She used her voice to uplift young girls, advocate for education, and show the world that grace and strength can coexist. And when she said, "When they go low, we go high," it became more than a quote. It became a movement of dignity and hope. Now let's go back in time again to 1921. A young woman walks onto a dusty airfield in France. The engines roar. The air smells like oil and courage. Her name, Bessie Coleman. The first black woman in the world to earn a pilot's license. Denied training in America because of her race and gender, she taught herself French, moved to Europe, and learned to fly there instead. When she returned home, she became an air show star, flipping, diving, and looping through the skies to inspire her people. They called her Brave Bessie. And she once said, "The air is the only place free from prejudice." When she flew, she carried every dreamer with her. From Bessie's skies to Nzinga's throne, from Nanny's mountains to Catherine's stars, one truth remains. Black women have always been the backbone of freedom. They fought wars, built movements, broke ceilings, and changed the world, long before the world was ready to admit it. Their stories aren't just history. They are the blueprint. So the next time someone tells you history is already written, remember this. The truest pages are still being turned. Because for every Nanny, Harriet, and Fannie Lou Hamer, there are millions more women whose stories are still waiting to be told. And maybe, just maybe, one of them is you. If this story inspired you, don't let it stop here. Like, share, and subscribe to keep these stories alive, because the world may have forgotten their names, but we won't because they deserve to be remembered. See you in my next video.